the one group. They're called the NerdBird Mafia.
Who is the NerdBird Mafia? What is that, Daniel Jones?
I honestly don't know.
8, 7,
We're already
6,
in Miami, yeah.
5, 4,
Okay.
3, 2,
Are you gonna,
1, 0.
do you mind telling me, like, what your plans consist of while you're there at all, or?
The spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Up came the sun and dried up all the rain. The itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. So the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
What did you say about a drone?
It's been reported that some of these online trolls have even flown drones over the family properties.
He went to the horse farm where I worked and flew his drone around there and was videoed himself whistling at horses on the property and everything.
Blow the whistle. Where is it?
Hello, everyone. This is Judge Randolph. Court is in session. Bob? Bob, are you still there? Bob, are you on mute? Good morning, everyone. This is Judge Randolph, and I'm excited to announce that attorney Bob Martin will be joining us today. Bob works for the Innocence Project, or at least he thinks he does, and he also knows Excel pretty well. I've been living with myself all of my life, so I know all of me. So when I watch me, all I see is me. It's boring. I'm gonna need way more coffee before listening to the 10-8 John Schoenberg today. God damn it. There will be order in my court. God damn it. If your cell phone is on, turn it off now. There will be order in my court. There will be no hats. There will be no laughing. This is Judge Randolph again. I don't know if the defense is joking or is this a joke? Order in my court, I said. Order. Objection overruled.
Good morning. Hopefully everybody can hear me. That'll be the most critical part because we have a whole new audio feed coming in. You see we have a whole new little board on the right. I don't know who Kevin is, but we're going to find out together. Can everybody hear me? Good morning, Court. Morning, Terry. I see some new faces in here. We have Defense Diaries joining us this morning. It's going to be an exciting day. I need an audio check, though. Yeah, thank you, Just Jen. All right, we got the tic-tac-toe board going over to the right. We got new notifications that'll pop up in the right. We got audio control. I'm using a new audio feed, so we will be able to boost the court's audio if they are lacking today. So it'll be exciting. Whole new layout. We got OBS. We got some multi-screen shizzle going on here. Look at this. All of the scenes all at once. Waveney Park, Jefferson, got her house, Jennifer's house in New Canaan, and then the Mountain Spring property. I'm trying out. I'm making big boy moves today, guys. So court audio is not kicking in yet. We're waiting for Bob Mata, Defense Diaries. This is exciting. I'm going to hear from him and hopefully get some legal analysis. And until then, there's tic-tac-toe over there. I don't know how to play. We're going to have a poll. I see Bob Mata joining us now. He's not on mute, so hopefully he doesn't say anything embarrassing. I'm going to mute his mic as a courtesy to him, just in case he's laying some shit down at home. Like, God damn it, I need the kids quiet. I don't know. All right. Well, Eva will be joining us. It's going to be another long day. We have content. 2 chats, 1 feed. For the first time, Bob, I muted you just in case you were laying shit down at home, like telling everyone to be quiet, but I'm going to unmute you now.
Word.
Welcome,
Thank you,
Bob.
brother. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm excited.
Me too, man.
So I was telling everyone we got games here. We got a couple different things here. We got video and content from the scene. This is the day when Fotis took his own life over at UConn, near UConn. So we have some games going on. We'll have alerts. So if people become subscribers, I think on either side, on your side, my side, we should see some alerts today. So videos. I'm excited.
First of all, I love games. So you just made my day.
I'm going to probably have to log Eva into one of the platforms at some point so she can control some of the spinny wheels and games and maybe edit some stuff here. So at some point, we're probably both going to have to walk away. This is going to be a long day, right? Yesterday, they got into the spiel. One of the things that people were taken aback by was that there is no opening statements. Connecticut does things differently. Wait till they go to New York, Bob. In New York, when you get a ticket, if the cop doesn't show up to court on the day that you do, the whole thing's thrown out. So in Connecticut, things are different. And then in New York, things are quite different. Every state has these little nuances.
Always, dude.
Yeah.
Always.
So.
Yeah. It's like even in Illinois, from like the collar counties, the western suburbs west of the city, they're far different than they are in Cook, and it's volume. Volume is what causes them to do things. Like New York, I could see why if the complaining victim's not showing up at a court date or the cops aren't showing up at a court date, they're done. If you can't make the time to show up to court, we got enough shit going on that we're not gonna continue the case. Because Chicago's like that too. Even with like batteries, like quasi or semi-violent crimes that are misdemeanors, if the complaining victim doesn't show up even to a status date early, they'll kick the case. So yeah, and it's different out in the counties, like the suburb counties. The victims don't have to show up. So it's different everywhere. I mean, every state's completely different. Like Alice and I are both licensed in Pennsylvania because Allie grew up out there. So, and then she hoodwinked me into going to practice in Philly, which was, so I did that for 4 years, took the bar out in Pennsylvania right after passing the Illinois bar. So you can imagine, the bar exam is pretty stressful, study your ass off for the Illinois. I pass it. So like all the stress goes away. I'm like, all right, I'm a lawyer. And then she's like, oh, my dad's going to give us seed money to hang a shingle in Philly. So I moved out there sight unseen, was out there for about 4 years. Hated Philly at first, grew to love it. But the lawyers, man, nah, dude. No disrespect to any Philly lawyers out there. It's different, man. It's like the Midwest, we're just nice. The East Coast, y'all aren't so nice.
We're short. We yell at people. We don't give directions. We ignore you if you do ask for directions. Yeah, it's different. Yesterday we all saw so this is a case, I don't know if you know, but I'm from Connecticut and I moved to Florida, but I was in Connecticut when this case unfolded, and for the first time, we saw footage from inside the house. You went on Twitter. I think you said, "Look, doesn't exhibit anything showing a crime scene yet, right?" And someone in our Discord said, "Oh, here comes Bob, the Innocence Project." So I sort of joked about that in my soundboard. But you come from a different perspective. You're a lawyer. You're an attorney. So you're gonna look for stuff. I'm coming from this, admittedly, from my soul, right? This is something that, yeah, I'm not. Obviously, there's going to be legal analysis. Presumably, we always say this, and I'm guilty on this case where I don't think she's innocent, right? But she is presumably innocent until guilty. And that's what I mean by you're coming at a different angle. I'm going to have to
48 hours ago.
100%. Yeah, and dude, like, you know, my thing is this, like, you know, I'm a defense attorney by trade, but I call shit like I see it. You know, if like, I don't think everybody's innocent, like that's absurd. You know, it's like anybody who listens to my content knows what's up about me. So like, I'm definitely not Johnny. Hey, everybody's innocent. They never met the burden guy. It's not my game, dude. Like if the state's got a strong case, they got a strong case. But what I do is I've tried cases for a very long time. I'm able to give some insight on whether or not I think that particular things are effective, you know, in terms of did they score some points with that particular cross-examination? Did that expert lay down what they needed to lay down? In my opinion, is the state meeting their burden, you know, shit like that. And like, if I think the state's doing a great job, I give them credit. If I think the defense is doing a great job, I give them credit. And if it's the other way around, I give them shit, you know, it's simple. So like, yeah, no one should be pigeonholing me into any area. I'll tell you that right now, because that's not what I do, you know?
We're going to do the Russian accent today. We're going to have some fun. I have
you mean my amalgam? I keep telling people, I'm like, it's an amalgam. Like my producer, he's like, you know, because like the dude in the case.
Okay,
was
you have
like
a producer? You have a producer?
Yeah, my producer who does all my post edit stuff on my podcast, not for the YouTube.
Eva, hold on. I need a producer, Bob. Hold on. Go ahead.
You need
continue.
a producer. Man.
I need a producer.
So he's like, you know, I'm like, hey man, I'm really good at like all kinds of accents. It's like in my wheelhouse. And I'm like, I want to do the Russian accent. He's like, no, dude, we'll get canceled. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you can't like, he's like, if you want to get like a Russian accent, you have to find somebody who's Russian and then have them do it. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do like a weird amalgam of like 20 different things. Cause people are like, oh, that doesn't really sound Russian. I'm like, I couldn't do Russian. Like they would like, my guy wouldn't let me do Russian. So, you know, I just tried to do kind of like an amalgam of Russian, you know, British, little Hispanic, and it was an amalgam accent. So, but you know, I like doing voices. It's kind of my thing. So, I mean, he was only able to rein me in so much. You know, I'm always gonna do voices, but I stick to like, you know, old men. I can do a lot of different voices, so it's one of the things I've always done it when I was like a little kid. That was always something that I did, so it was fun. Dude, this is so cool. I was
very good, Bob.
I didn't know that we could do this on StreamYard. That we could. It's
our first time.
Like it's awesome.
It's our first time. I figure, especially if you have your own channel, allows people to sort of multi-grow each channel, which is cool. Awesome. Let me ask the audience something though, real quick. We had a commercial that interrupted at least me. Did everyone hear that commercial? Because that will be the audio feed from the court. I'm getting a audio check from the audience. There was a commercial that came on with loud audio, very loud audio. I'm wondering if the audience heard that. Thank you, Fofa. Thank you. We have a bit of a delay today, Bob, because we are providing closed captions on this broadcast. We have a soundboard, of course. Let me get to the Morgan. This is Judge Randolph, really, but this trial is going to be narrated by God himself, aka Judge Randolph, Morgan Freeman. So let's. I
mean, does anybody have a better voice than Morgan Freeman?
Court is in session, Bob. Bob, are you still there?
Got the Bob.
Are you on mute? Good morning, everyone. This is Judge Randolph, and I'm excited to announce that attorney Bob Martin will be joining us today. Bob works for the Innocence Project, or at least he thinks he does, and he also knows Excel pretty well. I've been living with myself all of my life, so I know all of me.
I had to take a line from his
when
movie,
I watch
Bob.
Me, all I see is me. It's boring. I'm gonna need way more coffee before listening to the 10-8 John Schoenberg today. God damn it. There will be order in my court. God damn it. If your cell phone is on, turn it off now. There will be order in my court. There will be no hats. There will be no laughing. This is.
Oh, we're breaking all the rules.
We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun.
So is that AI?
That is AI. Yes, that's so you train a model using your own voice, and then you can train different voices. Donald Trump, Morgan Freeman.
Super close, man. I mean,
it's getting really scary, right?
Yeah, dude, it's scary. It's scary. Like, if you know anything about me, AI's got me on the run, bro. I'm like terrified of it, and like in a lot of different ways. It's like people are just like, they think it's cute and fun, and I'm like, man, you're not seeing the bigger picture on that shit. Like my cousin, my wife's first cousin, he's a tech guy and he works in the AI industry, and I'm like, my thing is like when it becomes sentient, we're done. Like there's no question in my mind. Like it will be infinitely smarter than we are, and if they're able to learn on their own, we're disposable, we're superfluous, we serve no purpose because they'll be able to do everything. It's Skynet. It's literally Skynet. Like the fucking Terminator was light years ahead of us in terms of knowing what was up. But man, it's like it's the deep fake stuff to where they'll be able to cause wars with stuff like this unless we can create software to where we are able to absolutely know that things are like somebody posted the Trump with the two chicks and Epstein like AI generated photo that dropped. I mean, it's just I don't know, man. Like,
you come from a different world. I'm in tech, and like in 1999, the world was going to end because the clocks on computers were going to.
Yeah, see, I thought that was bullshit. AI is very, very different. Like
AI is different. But I try to look at the good, right? AI is going to increase human life, right? Longevity. It's going to make breakthroughs in healthcare, medical.
Your cancer. I mean, like once they open the floodgates, I agree on all that. The problem is that we're humans, and that there's going to be people that are going to use it for not good. And know that. I know that. Yeah. And it's going to outweigh, I mean, look, because theoretically, when they open the floodgates and they let it just suck in every ounce of information that we have ever gathered in our entire existence instantaneously and be able to collate it and be able to just have complete comprehension immediately. Like there is no learning curve. It's not us learning how to read when we're kids. It's instantaneous, and they're going to be able to assimilate information in ways that we've never thought immediately. So like all the things you're saying are true in terms. I mean, like I wouldn't be surprised if AI cures cancer in like a day. You know what I mean? Like we're able to.
It's got potential to do some great things. It's got potential to do some very damaging things. Yeah.
It has the potential to end us, is what I'm trying to say. It's pretty simple.
Yep. It's so. I mean, obviously, it's fun, right? We hear a voice that's replicated. It's not going to be fun if your voice is replicated. You're going to have to think about it in your world, right? If someone has a protective order and someone wants to be vindictive, I could call them, I could spoof the number and replicate their voice, and the person would literally think it's that person violating a protective order, or there's a number of other ways that it can be manipulated and used for evil. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, that's such a great point. I've been thinking about that massively in terms of how it's going to affect the criminal justice system. Like, not even in just like an OP violation, in like any type of case. I mean, where you've got the ability to be able to create imagery and with the voice thing, it's like it's going to be almost impossible for us to differentiate between what's reality and what's not. And when you inject it into the criminal justice system where evidence is everything, and we have no way to be able to prove that it's not true, it's it's a thing. Like, have you seen this thing with the lawyer who was talking about, like, he was in front of Congress and it was a scam, and Jay had put it on, like Jay had like turned me on to this guy, and the dude was like, he was telling the story. He's like, one morning I get a phone call and it's my son on the line. He's like, Dad, he's like, I don't have much time to talk. I'm in jail. I've been arrested for a DUI, and apparently I hadn't been drinking for hours, but whatever. They said that I was drunk. I'm now, in jail. They said that I hit a pregnant woman in her car, and they appointed me some lawyer, and he's going to be calling you, and you got to pay this lawyer because they're not letting me bond out. So like this, and this guy's a lawyer, like the guy that's like getting this phone call from his son. So he goes through this. So 5 minutes later, some lawyer calls him and says, okay, gives him a case number, says what county it's in. And he's like, I need you to call the clerk. And, and so they have somebody set up as the clerk. They give him the number, and they are able to really reroute. And he like Googles the number for the county clerk or the circuit clerk, and it matches up. So he calls, and somehow they've been able to route his call so that the person that picks up, he says, okay, well, this is my son's case. And, he can hear her typing, and she says, okay, yeah, this is the case. This is the case number. This is this courtroom. So once he verifies that, he calls the lawyer back and he pays him like $8,000. And then, and the guy, like, as all this is going, the kid, like, he never thinks to just call his son, like to just try his phone. Cause like, if I'm a lawyer, I'm like, okay, well, number one, on a DUI, there's no way they're just putting you in jail and appointing you a public defender, and you don't pay public. Like, there was so much wrong with the story that I, as an attorney, would have known that something was up, that something was off. But this guy didn't know, man. And it turned out that they had, obviously they went on to the kid's socials. They found this guy, knew he had some money, that he was talking about his father. So found the kid's socials, did a deep fake of his voice. So the phone call with him sounds exactly like him. So it's his own son talking to him, but it was AI. So it's just, and like, I mean, he was testifying before Congress with it, man. Like that's just like scratching the surface of what they're going to be able to do with it, man. But like that, dude, that's like a whole, we could spend hours talking about that. Like, ask like Dan and Steve from Publicly Paused, man. I just have long thoughts on it, man. I'm very concerned about it. I see. So there's like everything you just said, but we're also now already seeing the repercussions of AI, I think, with these mid-level to high-level C-level positions where the murder suicides are up, and people, if you don't realize that AI is taking jobs, I think that's the most prevalent thing that I'm scared of. These companies, Uber, DoorDash, they've all been using humans to program the AIs, and then that's going to cascade over into every other vertical, including verticals like healthcare, doctors, lawyers, etc., which is scary. Creatives, dude. Like, I mean, I could go on and ask AI to write me a podcast script for my pod, and like, it's like there's date parameters right now. But if I'm like, okay, write me a 30-minute episode or a 60-minute episode on serial killer John Wayne Gacy, it's going to pump it out immediately, and it's going to be decent. You know what I mean? It's like there's, and then like you said, they can already mimic my voice. Like, they might not be able to nail like cadences in the way that.
So on my iPhone, on anyone's iPhone with the latest update, I'm going to triple press my iPhone right now. So I've trained my iPhone so that when I get hit by a bus one day or die chasing sharks or something stupid, Eva can remember my voice, Bob. So I press the button on my phone, and this is me. I've simply typed out what I want me to say.
I don't know what's happening right now.
AI.
Hello, I'm the Nerdy Addict, and I take it real slow. I don't fucking know right now, to be honest. I can't speak, so I use the system that I had to speak into to convey my speech.
I can't speak, so I use the system that I had to speak into to convey my speech. I don't understand what they're using it for, because really it's for handicapped people, but you have to talk into it. So if you can't talk,
Right.
But you have an app that's going to talk for you. How did you talk into it in the first place? But anyways,
I mean, unless they lost their ability to speak like later, and they have some kind of, you know, like some kind of content or videos where it could learn the what. That's crazy. So yeah,
Apple.
no. Leonard's got a good question. If AI becomes sentient, then what is its motivation to determine anything to help us? Like if you think about like the most powerful thing that I read, and I'm sure that you're aware because you're in the industry, when all the tech leaders wrote the 6 month, we gotta pause it for 6 months, and then and that was published in Time. It was every tech leader from around the globe saying, yeah, like we don't have anything in place to where if this thing gets where because we know that there's guys that know a hell of a lot more about computers than maybe even like gainfully employed people. Like hackers are working this shit like a rented mule, dude. Like there is a race because money's involved, power's involved to just keep growing the process of developing it so that it is truly sentient. That is going, I have zero doubt that there's a massive race for that to happen. And people are just not giving a shit because it's all driven by money and power like that.
Well, people need to be paying attention because money, power. Look, think of the underserved community, right? One of the outs for the underserved community is I turn 18, I have no outs, I'm in the ghetto, I can go to the military. I can make a good living from that. Now in the military, these jets, these helicopters, they're testing AI to drive these devices. You have
100%.
drones that are, you're not going to have any outs for those underserved communities, and then it's going to start cascading into the middle class. And
beyond that, all the jobs are going to be gone, dude. Like all those underserved jobs, like what Walmart, and we're coming to order here, but Walmart said by 2026 they're going to be 80% automated in all stores, meaning there's not going to be one human in a Walmart.
Scary. Now here in Florida, Circle K, there's a one attendant. We'll get back to it. I'm going to write it down. We'll get back to it.
Let's go.
Hi, Detective Riley, that he will be testifying to today, so that needs to be addressed prior to his testimony.
Thank you. Ready to call your witness?
I am, Your Honor.
Is anyone else hearing like a double, or is that just me? Probably just me. I'll turn up the volume. Thank you for letting me know you're not hearing double.
Morning. We resume today with this is Detective Pearson's what?
Yes, Your Honor. Jamie Pearson. And first report, Your Honor. Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely that the evidence shall give concerning this case shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. To help you battle upon penalty of perjury? Yes. Please state your name and spell it for the record. Sergeant Pearson, Jamieperston. Your affiliation, Connecticut State Police, Western District, Favorite Crime.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hey, ma'am, how are you? Good. You currently work with the state police?
Yes.
Okay. And your current rank, please?
Sergeant.
How long have you been a sergeant with the Connecticut State Police?
Approximately 2 years.
Thank you. Could you please describe some of your training and experience with the state police?
Yes, I was hired in 2008. At the time, I attended the State Police Academy. I have received extensive training throughout the course of the academy, as well as outside institutions, to include interview, crime scene processing, scene mapping, photography, evidence collection, blood pattern analysis, various other things.
Are you with a particular division or department within the Connecticut State Police?
Yes, Western District Major Crime.
Okay. And do you specialize in any, I guess, a specific part of major crimes?
Yes, I'm currently the supervisor of the crime scene van.
When you say crime scene van, can you just briefly explain what that is?
Yes, each district is assigned a van unit, which is comprised of detectives that is responsible for processing crime scenes, to include scene documentation, photography and such, as well as analysis, interpretation.
And you are currently the sergeant for Western District?
Yes.
In 2019, what was your role?
I was a detective within the same crime scene van unit.
How long have you been working in the van unit total?
I began in 2018 as a detective.
I've updated the layout. Bob and I are still here. We're just behind her so that we're not obstructing the view, and we'll come back when required.
I'm going to draw your attention specifically back to that May 2019 timeframe. Did you have an occasion to respond to 69 Wells later?
Bob, your voice will still carry over when you unmute, so if you have any commentary, feel free. You're just not going to be shown on the screen.
Was that the first time that you responded there?
It was.
Okay, so you did not go on the 24th or 25th?
No.
Okay. What was or why did you respond there?
I was tasked with producing a scene map as the continuation of scene processing was extended to the 27th.
Was anyone from New Canaan Police Department on scene when you arrived?
Yes, there was a marked cruiser securing the scene.
And who else from the Connecticut State Police was on scene with you?
Myself, Lieutenant Colonel Davison, Detective Riley, Detective Hazen, Detective McGavin. I believe that was it.
And you mentioned a sketch map. Is that what you, could you just explain what that is?
Yes, we take measurements from the scene to produce a map which would depict spaces, whether it's size of a building or the room, the crime scene in question, as well as evidence in its relation to the scene.
In this case, what did you mean by scene?
I was tasked with mapping the garage of 69 Wells Lane.
What's the purpose of a sketch map?
We want to memorialize the location of evidence, as well as other items. It could be furniture or things of interest, things of value.
And you mentioned a few names of individuals who were with you. In the course of going through the garage, or what were their assignments?
Lieutenant Colonel Davison was called in to assist with the blood pattern analysis. Sergeant McGavin was the scene officer, so he produced a scene report. Detective Riley was responsible for evidence collection, and Detective Hazen took photographs.
And you mentioned a blood pattern analysis. What is that?
It's when the blood presented is analyzed and interpreted.
Are you trained in blood pattern analysis?
Yes.
Is that in any way connected to reconstruction of a crime scene?
I am not trained to the same level as others. I have a basic understanding and knowledge of bloodstain.
You did not conduct the blood pattern analysis in this case, did you?
I did not.
Okay, who did?
Lieutenant Colonel Davison.
Now, have you worked with Lieutenant Colonel Davison previously?
Yes.
About how often?
This is Eargo, and they're virtually invisible. They're like Little guardian angels for your ears, automatically enhancing hearing wherever you are.
Throughout my entire career, and when I joined Major Crime in 2013, he was in the unit, and we worked together throughout that tenure.
Now, in the course of creating a sketch map, are there certain steps you take?
Yes.
Could you just walk through some of those steps that you do?
Once the items are items of evidentiary value, I should say, once they are identified, I produce field notes where I am measuring them in to the scene and memorializing it in a note pattern. I then take the notes and put it into a report and produce a actual utilizing Easy Street Draw, which is the program.
What types of tools do you use when you create the sketch map?
Various things. In this case, I used a laser distance measurer as well as a steel measuring tape.
The kid, your honor, states 8, I believe, is a full exhibit. No objection?
That's correct, no objection. They say it will be admitted as a full exhibit.
I may just have 1 minute to sign in there.
All right, just so you all know what they're going through right here is, and it's so important, is creating what they call a chain of custody. All right, so they're establishing, when she's talking about mapping out the garage, they want, because everything gets tendered to the lawyers, and that's what they use in order to try the case, both the state and the defense. We rely on the chain of custody. If there's breaks in the chain, we attack it as defense attorneys. They're saying, okay, well, where did this piece of evidence go into whose hands next? If there's an issue, we start attacking it. So that's what they're doing right now.
Yesterday, Bob, the defense attorney, was asking some questions. I don't know if you follow along. Was he, because they didn't seem relevant, but is he trying to lock police into timestamps and stuff in the body cam for later?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of that, and I was taken aback. I did not know that in Connecticut that the norm was not to have opening statements. I've never heard of it. I'm not a fan of it, frankly, from the jury's perspective, because, theoretically they're going in with no idea what the case is about. And, opening statements are not argument. They're not evidence. But what you do is you lay out your theory of the case for the jury so they know what to expect as the trial proceeds for both sides. So when I heard that, I was like, wow. And then I was tweeting, I'm like, can I have some Connecticut lawyers confirming it's true? So we'll talk about it. Let's listen to what she has to say.
You recognize that?
Sure. Thank you.
Yes. What is it? That is the first map of 8, which is an overall of the garage located at 69 Wells Lane.
Now, you talked a little bit about taking measurements and utilizing a ruler and a tape measure, I guess. Is that a way to say it? Thank you. Can you walk us through, perhaps explain how you use those tools to create this map?
Yes, in this case, I used a rectangular coordinate method, which is the method where you have 2 steel tapes on the ground in this instance, and they intersect at a right angle to determine a distance from 2 known points. In this case, it was the footings of the poured cement garage floor.
Would you mind, please, Your Honor, may I ask her to go up to the screen point? Thank you. Sergeant Pearson, can you please head on up? When you say the footings, what do you mean?
Around the perimeter, there's approximately 3 1/4 inches of cement that protrudes to the interior of the sheetrock walls.
And do you have a marking next to that, and you have an arrow directing it? This is in the, I guess, the bottom middle of the PDF. And a number on the top says 3.25. What does that mean?
That's the approximate measurement of that protrusion of cement.
Could you please explain on the, I guess, working your way from left to right, if you could just explain some of the markings. You have A, B, C. What is that?
So these were evidentiary zones that allowed us to segment the garage into a more workable space. And then I was able to take measurements from each evidentiary zone and elaborate or blow it up into a larger map.
With respect to the, I guess, zone G, why is that in the middle, or why is that depicted like that?
So G contained a vehicle at the time of processing, and we mapped G with the Range Rover in place as found by detectives.
And DEF?
Same as A, B, and C. It was in the southernmost garage bay. It was split into 3 evidentiary zones.
On the upper right side, or I'm sorry, not even upper right side, but on the right side, there is an arrow that has a number. I think it's 21, starting with 21. Can you just explain what that is?
Yep, so this is the interior dimension from wall to wall, which would be east-west in a measurement of 21 feet 1 inch.
Did you measure from, I guess it would be north-south as well?
I did, so from north to south, footing to footing, the interior measurement was approximately 33 feet and 11 inches.
Now, you also have writing on the left-hand side, and I'm putting my cursor on it over here. What does this mean?
This is part of our map legend, which is generally included in every map that we produce, and it includes the case number, the date, the type of case, the location, my name and signature, as well as the scale, north arrow, and whether or not it's one of the series.
Now, there's a marking right in, I guess, grid B that states area of convergence. What is that?
Area of convergence was determined on scene through measurements of the blood stains found relevant to this investigation. It's where a line is drawn through the long axis of each blood stain, and where those lines intersect in a two-dimensional plane is what's called the area of convergence.
Did you determine the area of convergence in this case?
I did not.
Who did?
Lieutenant Colonel Davidson.
Is the area depicted on the map conveyed at the area B where it says area of convergence? Is that documented where that area was determined to be?
Yes, approximately.
Okay. And up here on G, on the, I guess, top middle, what is that supposedly supposed to depict?
That was 2 wooden stairs that left the garage floor and entered a entry door into a mudroom of the home.
You can have a seat, Sergeant Pearson. Did you map any other part of the garage? Or I'm sorry, not the garage, the residence?
I did not.
On states 8, picture 2. Sergeant Pearson, if you can just take a look behind you. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
That is the northernmost garage bay of 69 Wells Lane.
And I also see an A, B, C. What are those markings?
Those correspond with the evidentiary zones that we just saw in the map in that left or northernmost bay.
Did you conduct this, by the way, did you put the yellow marking tape down?
I did not.
Okay, who did?
Lieutenant Colonel Davison.
Was that done before any seizing of exhibits or documentation of any exhibits that were found in the garage?
On the 27th, yes.
And I'm going to draw your attention to right behind you again. Sergeant Pearson, do you recognize what's depicted on the screen? This is states 8, picture 3.
Yes.
What is it?
This is a blowout of evidentiary zone A in that northern garage bay.
Would you mind also getting back up and pointing to a few things? I apologize. Thank you. Okay. On the, I guess, right middle, there are these dots with a letter and number, A18, A17, A16. What are those supposed to represent?
So items that are listed not as an exhibit. So for example, 18, 17, and 16, as well as 15, 14, 13, and 12. Those are items that were used for light pattern analysis. Not necessarily exhibits unless it states next to it.
So with respect to A18, and then there's a parentheses, exhibit number 41, parentheses, close parentheses, what does that mean?
Papa's in the house.
A piece of evidence, so seized as exhibit 41, but also utilized in the bloodstain pattern analysis.
So with respect to any documentation on your map that has a letter and number, it is only the ones, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, that have the exhibit next to it that were seized as exhibits in this case.
Yes.
And the others were used for reconstruction?
Analysis, yes. And the A corresponds to the evidentiary zone.
Okay. I'm gonna do states 3.
Nothing overly important, Lori. They're going over stuff that I typically glaze over. Bob will probably be excited about some of the stuff. I want to see the crime scene inside the garage with the UV lighting that they use.
Do you recognize what's depicted on that photograph?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's ultimately the first sign of any kind of crime taking place that we find in the house. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm anxious to see that myself.
As you delineated on your map, is there a corresponding, I guess, sticky or marker tag or placard that is used on that to document on the scene?
Yes, so typically if it is an item of evidentiary value, it is either noted by a yellow evidence placard. It could be a sticky scale, which has the exhibit number on it. It could be an arrow, something that could later be photographed and then backed in to the scene.
States 8.
What folks are seeing on the screen right now is the actual garage, the outside of it, and the house. So as we go through and they show pictures inside, you'll see some pictures of the house from outside, and we have Google Maps open too.
This is evidentiary zone B, also in the northernmost bay of 69 Wells Lane.
And on the left-hand side, there are those numbers, B11, B10, and B9. Is that similar to what you just testified for in A?
It is. So again, items used for analysis within the B evidentiary zone are assigned B and a numeric. If it was used as evidence, we included the exhibit number.
Now, there are exhibit numbers here, if you can, that have a box or square, I should say, as opposed to a circle, and no letter enumeration. It just says exhibit.
Chanel. It's Chanel, Bob.
Yes.
Can you explain that for me?
This is an item that was seized from evidentiary zone B, however, not utilized for bloodstain pattern analysis.
Yeah, I'm a pretty
Does your
poor
map
type.
on B also show the area of convergence designated by Mark Davidson?
Yes,
Thank
on
you.
the right-hand side of the map.
States 8, picture 6. What does this depict?
Remind me to show you guys the aerial footage of
This would be
the house where Fotis Doulos' mother was killed by another nanny.
And picture 7.
My drone was acting funny, Bob, there.
Evidentiary zone B with exhibits 42, 43.
You know I love your drone work, man. Big time.
I was an amateur. It was right when I got it, when I was getting sober in Connecticut. I went back to Connecticut for the first time after Florida. It was shaky, but I think there's a spirit there at that house. You'll see why.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
These may have been, I can't quite see.
I can scroll
Yes,
up.
so that's an exhibit. It looks like, I can't tell.
Before Jennifer's death, about 10 years before that, Bob, Fotis Doulos went over to Greece, and his mother lives within walking distance of one of the houses in the Warrants. Apparently, she was run over by a housekeeper and nanny there and killed.
Wow. That's, do they think, so wait, when did that happen?
Like 10 years ago, and yeah, I mean, it had investigators and Connecticut thinking a lot. They actually went to that home because it was like 5 minutes from his main house, and he owned it, obviously. And they emptied the septic tank there. They had the same ideas that we had, because the reality remains throughout this trial. You'll hear there have been no remains of Jennifer Dulos that have been found yet. So
it's a no body case, and no body cases are rough, you know. But interestingly, they declared Jennifer deceased a few days ago, which at least in terms of the state, they're able to say she's deceased. Which takes that ammo away from the defense to be able to say, well, she could still be alive. Now, we all know as a mother of 5, there's no way she's abandoning her kids, like reality. But theoretically, it is reasonable doubt, kind of.
yeah, someone asked if that was a coincidence. No, 2 days before trial, a probate judge declared her as deceased. So yeah, I don't believe in coincidences, and it sounds like you don't either. Yeah.
Not a coincidence.
Did you map those sides as well?
I did.
Okay, states 8, picture 10.
So someone asked what the broad did. So Michelle Traconis is accused of conspiring to kill Jennifer Dulos, also tampering with evidence. She has 60 years hanging over her head. They have video footage of her and Fotis Dulos on the day Jennifer went missing, throwing away evidence in Hartford on Albany Avenue, scattering throughout trash receptacles and spreading it out. So that's the gist of it. Conspiring to murder is their main charge.
Now, on picture 11, states 8, actually going to zoom in a little bit. There are these, I guess, white, backwards L-shaped things. If you can just explain what those are.
That is a scale typically used in photography to photo evidence and have a standardized scale in the photo.
We have Just T in the house. I'm not going to disclose the name this time. I would never be good if I was in witness protection. But Just T's in the house. I don't think there's anyone closer besides myself to this case. So I'll be putting up comments when related to this case from T.
And states 8, picture 13. Could you please explain what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, it's a photo of evidentiary zone E.
States 8, picture 14. Same question, Sergeant, if you can.
Evidentiary zone F.
All right, and just so y'all, when you watch trials and you get testimony like this, and it's really dry and like boring, understand what they're doing is this officer is laying the foundation and authenticating the photographs that they took of the crime scene in order for them to be introduced into evidence. They have to do it for every single piece of evidence that gets tendered. So that's when you go through these really slow kind of portions of testimony where they're talking about what do you see? Does this accurately reflect the scene as it was on that day? And the officer will say yes. And at that point, they'll collectively enter all the pictures into evidence. You'll hear them do it later, but that's what they're doing.
Every single thing that has either a...
What was Schoenberg doing yesterday? He was trying to get at something at the end there. People were sort of laughing. Let me listen in real quick. He was trying to lock in police officers at the scene taking pictures, Bob. Sort of getting argumentative with the police officer. Well, was there 3 officers? Was there 4? And from my purview, it wouldn't matter. Right? There could be 15 as long as there's police officers that are trained there on the scene. Doesn't matter to me. But do you know what he was getting at?
Yeah, he's going to try to establish that they jacked up the crime scene, that there were so many cops in there that, you know, that they essentially that they destroyed the crime scene because there were too many cops, you know, too many chefs in the kitchen, and that, you know, we can't trust the evidence because some of them weren't wearing footies, some of them didn't have gloves on, you know, I mean, it's we all know if you watch trials, it's a very common tactic to attack the processing of the crime scene because you want to be able to, especially if there's damning evidence, say for instance, blood, you know, you want to be able to try to, as an attorney from the defense side of it, you want to be able to establish, or at least try to establish that the collection process wasn't good. So that's what he was trying to lay a foundation for that.
With respect to
Got it. Thank you.
Exhibit 67, is that related to a actual exhibit?
It is not. Originally, an item was designated as Exhibit 67 and subsequently photographed and mapped in. And it was later learned that it had been relocated and not seized as an exhibit. Therefore, I submitted an additional addendum map to correct that.
With respect to exhibit
Question on the screen for you, Bob, when you get a second.
67, was there actually something that was delineated 67? Should say that.
On this map?
No.
Yes, so 67 was seized from the northern.
So yesterday, Bob, the state brought up a cop, and the defense said, we don't want to examine him right now. We want to examine him later. And that's what the question is related to.
So it depends. I mean, we can, as defense attorneys, we can reserve the right to call or recall a witness that the state's put on if the defense thinks that it fits better in their case. Now, if it was towards the end of the day, is that like what time of the day was it? Was it close to the end of the day and he was just trying to kick it till today? You know, I mean, a lot of times, like I have it because
he said weeks. He said in a couple of weeks. I think that's what was the confusion. He's like, I should be able to cross-examine this guy in 2 weeks. And the judge is like, well, why don't you just examine him now? And he didn't. So.
Yeah, and more likely than not, they're still conducting their own investigation in terms of like, because people need to understand the defense. We have an ethical duty to investigate the case as well, you know. And
but he had almost 5 years to do that, I think, is everyone's frustration, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, he may have had 5 years to do it, but, you know, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. He may have been surprised by some of the testimony. Like typically that's what happens if something is testified to that he wasn't anticipating, you know, and theoretically when we're given discovery during the discovery process, you know, the state is supposed to tender everything that, you know, they intend on introducing a trial. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to or have to have any requirement to tender what the witness is going to testify to exactly. So you're always going to get surprised by certain things, you know, because essentially we get crime scene photos, we get lab reports, you know, we get the police reports, and you know, we get videos, audio, all that stuff. But you're not going to ever know what a witness is going to testify to unless you practice in a state that allows for deposition. Like Illinois, we cannot depose anybody prior to trial, which is super frustrating because like the first time I'm ever getting to talk to either cop witnesses or lay people witnesses is at trial. So all I know about what they've said is what is in the reports or if they have written statements, which is a scary proposition because, you know, the number one rule of cross-examination is never ask a question that you don't know what the answer is. That's you just get body slammed.
Vehicle floorboards, interior vehicle floorboards.
Hey, we got another question in your experience defense diaries. How often has evidence collection been compromised?
I mean, it's not infrequent, but you know, the fact of the matter is that there is no perfect processing of the crime scene. I mean, we're all human beings, you know, but the question then becomes, you know, is it germane? Did it taint the evidence in such a way that it doesn't have any kind of evidentiary value? And typically the answer is no. I mean, typically the best that we can do is try to create some kind of reasonable doubt as to the collection of, or, you know, the process that was used, you know, which is, again, why they're going through such great lengths here for her to explain exactly how they, you know, they mapped out the garage. They use this like kind of like a CAD type program, it looks like, in terms of saying, okay, this is where the evidence, and they're creating that chain of custody, and they're creating a visual aid for the jury to know that this is where certain evidence was found. The event the defense is going to come up. Is this the defense guy?
I just have a few.
Attorney Schoenberg, yes, sir.
Right.
Cross-examination. Here we go.
He's not going to have much to do on this.
when you place, there are a couple of pictures I just want to ask you about. And if I would ask that if we could put up just for a minute, exhibit.
We already know this is bullshit. Like he's gonna nitpick. That's all this is gonna be.
We don't have a 10.
It's numbered, it's the exhibit 8, but it's, 10. This is 10A from exhibit 8 that you were just showing a little bit. And I'm just going to ask you if you would please explain. There is the yellow tape that's placed on the measuring tape. Is that in inches or in centimeters?
I believe it's just inches. I don't recall if the other side has metric measurements. I'd have to look at it closely.
Right. And you're aware of the fact that if it's metric, there are approximately 2.54 centimeters to 1 inch, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You'll take my word for it.
I will.
All right. Can I zoom in a little bit, please, on the yellow tape measure, please? Zoom it in.
Hey, Bob, thanks for being here today. I didn't say thank you earlier, but thanks for being here to answer questions like this.
Oh, my pleasure, man. It's been a long time since we hung, dude, so it was long overdue.
And then there's the little, could zoom out again, please. Now, you also made reference to some of these white tapes. And again, I'm just gonna, I'm referring to, we're talking about these little white items such as what's on the blown up image now. Now, we can't read this in the blow up, can we?
I cannot.
So let me go to, let's go to exhibit 11 and see if we can see it any better, please. And for the record, this is garage D. This is the section of the garage that you called, I think D, correct?
Yes.
The portion, all right. And if we can look at, there are a bunch of these little white tapes down there. If we could just slightly zoom in on the white L-shaped portion, let's do the larger one there. Now, there are little numbers that do appear on this photograph, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell whether those are in inches or in centimeters or millimeters for that matter?
I'm familiar with the largest of the two scales.
Why is he getting so granular, Bob?
The smaller may have.
I warned you this was just going to be nitpicking. Like I'd be objecting that it's like, what's the relevance of this? Like he's asking her, what the metric conversion is for an inch. I mean, who gives a fuck?
Assuming centimeters, I'm asking.
Yes.
76 Fahrenheit in the United States. What is the Celsius temperature?
Let me put it this way: he's not making any headway with this cross-examination right now.
These appear to be centimeters as well, do they not?
Yesterday, he said in open court, "Now I understand why you objected," and a jury member visibly laughed, according to people inside the courtroom. So, and you could tell his client, the defendant, Michelle Traconis, was not happy yesterday with his performance. So, but he's got 5.5 weeks to
completely fuck it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Massively shit the bed. Yeah.
That I'm now circling here.
He asked questions yesterday about Waveney Park. We'll see footage where her SUV was found, and he was asking about the age of the trees, and I don't even understand why.
And again, I'm not going to ask you.
Yeah, and this case is really interesting because it is a conspiracy case, and just so y'all understand, so she's been charged with conspiracy to commit murder, and in Connecticut, it carries the exact same penalty as if Traconis had killed her herself. So, but there's different elements that they have to prove in terms of proving conspiracy. So, like the way that it works is if you're charged with a conspiracy, you are responsible for whatever the most serious felony that occurred or was committed in connection with the conspiracy. So in this case, it's murder. So murder is the most serious charge. So they're going to have to prove the conspiracy. That's going to be far more interesting than this, What they're trying to do now, and what they have to do in every single case, there's two things that have to be done by the state. They have to, what they called proof of life, meaning that Jennifer Doulos was alive and she was a human and she lived on this planet, because that's in the statute. Like for any type of criminal case you're ever watching, the state has to prove each and every element of that statute, and every murder statute has that you've ended the life of a human being. So they have to establish first that they were a real person, and that's a proof of life stuff. They also have to prove proof of death. So that's what they're trying to do with the blood. Like we had that issue, and this helps in terms of, like, number one, we've got the probate court establishing that she is deceased in the eyes of the law. Now they're going to be putting in blood evidence. So that is all to show that proof of death, which is a requirement of the statute as well. So that's why they're going through this process. This doesn't have anything to do with conspiracy. When we get to that portion of it, that's where they're going to have to be proving that she was working in conjunction with Fotis to kill her, So that's where we're going to get the script.
Just for Apple, like, I mean, it's not apples, right? I said this yesterday. I'm going to say a name that we're not allowed to say on the stream. I'll rhyme it. Tipsy Hose. All right. She, you take away the abusive mother, and you're going to hear arguments here that Fotis Doulos was abusive to both his estranged wife, and I think Michelle Traconis' defense is going to pull that too, right? But Tipsy Hose conspired and got 7 years. This is much different. She's got 60 years hanging over here. You defined and sort of explained why there's a difference. Connecticut treats this as a murder.
It's like, as if she'd committed the murder herself. It's kind of like what they in our state, they have felony murder, wherein, say, I'm the getaway driver and I'm with the crew and we stop and pull over and two dudes jump out to go rob a liquor store. Shit goes sideways in there. They shoot the clerk. They run out. They get in the car. They get caught, or they find the car on video and they're able to find the car and they get arrested. I'm guilty of murder. The same way as if I pulled the trigger through the felony murder. So the conspiracy statute in Connecticut is the exact same way. If you've conspired an agreement between parties to commit a crime, she's just as guilty as if she actually physically killed Jennifer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is just a matter of setting up for the next witness. We would ask that you return to the deliberation room. Please do not discuss the case.
So jury's being sent out as they prepare for the next witness. This is not a recess.
Yeah, that's right, P. Fox. In Illinois, you might as well just pull the trigger. It's the same thing.
What do you tell your clients, Bob, when they're showing up for a trial this long, in terms of attire, what they're wearing?
That there be no
conservative, and it depends. If they're in custody, we have the opportunity to bring them like a couple of sets of clothing, but they're basically going to be wearing the same thing for the most part. If they're out of custody, obviously they'll be dressing differently every day, but always conservative, respectfully. It's really more demeanor is the tougher thing to get clients to kind of toe the line. It's like you can't be, like you were talking about a situation yesterday where the whole courtroom was laughing. As the defendant, I'm advising my client, okay, well, you're not joining in on the laughter. That this is you taking this as serious as you can, and nothing's funny about it. And because the jury's constantly looking at the defendant. Like if there's a powerful witness on the stand and they give testimony, like immediately every eye and that witness says something that's
introduced at least three.
Seems very.
Last night.
Let's listen in and hear what they're trying to argue here.
Of either luminol or Kastle-Meyer, which is shortened in some documents to KM, which is the reagent test. The presumptive test for blood. I had cited in my motion State versus Moody. I also cited the New Jersey appellate court case of State versus Pittman and the Arkansas case of Young versus State, which were subsequent to Moody, that all stand for the proposition that the presumptive test for blood, whether they use luminol or they use the Castle-Meyer product, is some kind of an aerosol spray that reacts to different substances. One of the substances is blood. There's other fluids that do, but also certain kinds of cleansers do, certain rust products do. There may be I saw one article that listed 30 things that react to it. Now, I'm not sure, other than what the state mentioned yesterday, the idea that it should come in just so that the state can explain why certain pictures were taken. We're about to see, I didn't count them all, but about 40 photographs that cover all of these same areas. We've already seen pictures of drops of blood, alleged blood, or blood-like stains from both the Suburban and from the garage. We also had the video that showed and there were zoom-ins of the same thing, as well as the body camera showing something that was a blood-like stain. Now, State versus Moody addresses two issues. And the case that was mentioned yesterday, the Grant case, and there are a couple of other appellate court cases, there were two issues in Moody. And I want to make this clear because the state has kind of conflated the two issues. The first issue in Moody was whether or not a lay witness or anyone else, a police officer, could imply that something looked like blood, and whether a lay opinion was appropriate in the absence of confirmatory testing. Both in Moody, there's another case called Whipple, State versus Whipple, where they discuss that, and then in Grant, they explain the difference between the findings in Moody and Whipple, and in the Grant case, where it wasn't about luminol, it wasn't about this presumptive blood testing, it was instead about whether a lay witness can say, looked like there was a pool of blood, the person was bloody, etc. And that was the issue in those later cases. I think I emphasized yesterday, I don't want to have to re-quote it, but the Supreme Court specifically, the Supreme Court of Connecticut has specifically said that there is absolutely no probative value whatsoever in the presumptive testing. And therefore, the fact that they took some additional photographs, which we're going to have every inch of these vehicles being photographed anyway, because there's a presumptive test that glowed, is going to confuse the jury. And I'm going to explain, it's not just going to be about here. Later on, when they do the presumptive test of the glow, the luminol in the Tacoma, it wasn't blood at all. It's not human. It's not organic. So it's the only possible reaction of this jury is they're going to be thinking that somehow, the fact that this it glowed in the blue light, there must be more blood there. There's as the court is well aware, there is not very much blood at all on either scene, either on the Suburban, which now the court has seen, or in the garage. So the danger here is the prejudice is the jury's going to think, oh, well, there's more because this spray makes it look like there was even more that we're not picking up. But in both cases, as far as I know, when they tested it, it was when it went to the lab, it was not blood. But when we get back to the issue at hand, since it has no probative value under Moody, and the issue has to do with whether or not it's going to either be confusing or in some way prejudicial. If they're going to try and introduce it, then I insist that we have a Porter hearing, because if the court, I thought it's already been decided that it has no value, and a lab person down the road may testify to that, but in light of your ruling from yesterday, if the state doesn't ask a subject matter, I don't get to cross-examine about it, and then only if I decide to put on a case in the defense case would it even come out. And so, in following the court's rulings and the way the court wishes to proceed, we're talking about 3 or 4 pictures today through Detective Riley, or I don't know if he's now a sergeant, but he was a detective at the time, and asking in the question why he took certain pictures, which I submit is irrelevant since they took pictures of everything and documented everything. So in light of the decision in Moody and in the case of State versus Whipple, where there's such a strong view by the Connecticut Supreme Court that has no probative value, and they use the word whatsoever, that it will only lead to prejudice. And I submit that the argument that, well, they can distinguish Moody, not on this issue. There is not a single case that I could find anywhere that said that it had probative value at all. That is, we're talking about this reagent spray test, at any probative value whatsoever. But there's a lot of not only danger or prejudice, but confusion. What's the jury going to think? What's the court going to instruct the jury? That it has no value and we're only putting it in because that's where the officer wanted to take pictures? There's like 40 pictures we're about to see from Detective Riley. The whole car, the 3 pictures where they use the blue light to do that, or the black light rather, and it looks blue in the photographs. There's no explanation for it. There's no legitimate basis for it. So on those bases, I asked the court to preclude, again, we're talking about 3 or maybe 4 pictures out of 40 which are going in. I could also argue cumulative, but we don't even get to that in light of the fact that there's just such danger with this particular misunderstanding and misapprehension for what's essentially junk science. There are a lot of things they could, I'll give you one last example and I'll sit down. There could be a situation where a police officer conducts a polygraph test and said, yes, polygraphs are not admissible, but based on what was said, I then went and did X. But of course, the Supreme Court has said you can't bring in polygraph for any reason because it's not reliable and has no probative value. So to use that as the reason for conduct by a police officer in this case,
what's that word?
Certainly be more prejudicial than probative. And it's also not necessary for the state's case to prove their case. I just have 1 minute. I've also been reminded that in Moody, the court talked about how that particular piece of evidence had an impact on the jury. And that's why the Supreme Court was so adamant that it's not admissible because it has no validity in either science or in the law. Thank you.
So first, Attorney Schoenhorn, the court wants to understand what the nature of the testimony may be from this next witness. So this next witness took photographs, is that correct?
No, that is not correct, Your Honor. If I may interject, the next witness didn't take any photographs. The next witness is the evidence officer who determined which items in the garage to seize as exhibits and or document as evidence. He authored an evidence report or exhibit report, which indicates every item that is documented on Sergeant Pearson's map. He is the individual who made that decision in connection with with Lieutenant Colonel Davidson to examine those items. He also, if you look at the exhibit report, did KM testing on around 30 of those exhibits, Your Honor, some of which, about 4 of them, came back negative. He documented that as well. There are about 3 or 4 photographs the state intends to introduce as well with respect to the luminol that was done on the car that counsel is referring to, but it's not by itself what this detective is testifying to. He's testifying to the content of the photographs, not taking them. So just to be very clear on that.
Well, what is his testimony expected to be?
His testimony is going to walk through the garage, identify the items that were seized as exhibits in 69 Wells itself, in the house.
So let the court interject here. His testimony is going to be what items were seized that were of evidentiary value, correct?
And what he did when he processed the scene, yes.
Let's just talk about what he decided to seize.
Yes, Your Honor.
So his testimony is going to be he decided to seize what?
Doing big boy stuff now, right now, Bob. You see that little video at the bottom? I have multi-screen pop-up screens going on. Just big boy moves, Bob.
They are big boy moves.
What you're seeing is the neighborhood right here, drone footage of the neighborhood around Jennifer Dulos' home, where police obtained Ring camera, surveillance camera of her SUV on the day of. So
logging them as exhibits.
And that showed that, like, the day that Jennifer went missing, that Michelle was home, right?
What he did was swab those areas of that.
she made a point to create a couple alibis back in Farmington on the day of, which implies that she knew something was going down. But she was in Farmington, accounted for with pictures and surveillance camera, as far as we know.
Okay.
That is the nature of the testimony presented, Your Honor, with respect to the presumptive test.
So he is going to be asked, the court assumes, that he did not take the photographs, correct? Because Attorney Pearson did not take the photographs.
She did not, and the state did not offer them as a photographer. I offered them as a representation of what the map was. And
well, the only way, counsel, that the jury knows what was, or what the garage floor looked like, was through photographs.
Yes.
The only way that your next witness can testify about what he swabbed is because we saw the photographs.
Those, and there are more photographs that the state intends to introduce. He will testify to each one if necessary. If counsel is objecting to those photographs coming in, then I will lay a foundation for each and every one, utilizing the screen and asking him if that is a fair and accurate representation of what he observed that day and what he sees as evidence. I have no problem doing that, Your Honor. I did not do that, by the way, with Sergeant Pearson, just for the court, because counsel did not have any objection to the photographs coming in to save time, but I will if that is what is needed.
Well, the testimony is going to have to reach the point where he says he swabbed this area because.
Yes.
And that's where this issue arises, correct?
If I may just clarify and actually bounce off what counsel said, what we discussed yesterday, and I believe the court order ruled an issue on, is the fact that the police officer can testify, or even lay witness can testify, that something appears to be blood-like. That would be the start of the testimony. Then I believe Detective Riley will testify as to, once he determined that it was blood-like, what his next steps were, either to swab it or test it for utilizing the KM test. So it's a link in the chain after. So just to keep those two issues separate.
Well, just to phrase it colloquially, he's going to testify, it looked like blood to me.
Yes.
Next, he's going to indicate that it was swabbed because it looked like blood to him.
Yes.
And also he performed a presumptive test, correct?
Yes, but just to qualify that, Your Honor, I don't believe that the only reason it was further swabbed and further steps were taken was simply because of the look of the item. It was the entire concept or the facts of the case, including the fact that we have Jennifer Dulos is a missing mother of 5 who dropped her kids off from school and never returned home, including the fact that it all happened in her home. The blood was positioned in one location and made it more likely that it was blood. There were numerous factors going into his decision. So it is a little more nuanced than that.
Well, counsel has indicated that there are a number of grounds on which he believes that a lay witness should not testify concerning.
I just turned the volume down there so you can hear it in the background a little bit. But on the day of the murder, Bob, it's presumed Michelle Traconis or Kent Malhenny, the other co-conspirator charged in this case, picked up a phone. So Fotis deliberately left his phone back in Farmington when he traveled to New Canaan, which is an hour and 20 minutes away. They then had their friend in Greece make a phone call to his phone, and Michelle or Kent picked up that phone to make it look to police like Fotis was there on his phone talking for 10 minutes with his friend. She then goes to Stop and Shop and takes a photo purposely with a robot called Marty. It's one of these robots that does absolutely shit, but we have them in Stop and Shop in Connecticut. She takes a picture with this robot, then goes to a storage unit where she knows there's surveillance video at the beginning and entrance of that storage unit to be seen there. She builds a formidable alibi so that it appears to police that she had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I mean the answering the phone is powerful evidence with respect to the conspiracy, though. That's, I mean, her
and then
alibi,
this guy in Greece, his best friend. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the fact that she didn't commit the murder herself with her own hands really is of no importance. That fact that he left his phone back and she answered the phone, because when we get to the script, you know, when we get to the written script that Fotis had written out, and these are the things you have to do, you know, those types of things where she's trying to establish an alibi for Fotis is huge. You know, like her just saying, look, I'm here, I didn't do it, doesn't mean shit in a conspiracy charge. So that's interesting, man. Like, yeah, I did not know that.
So we'll learn if it was her or Kent, right? But the fact of the matter is that both of them were allegedly in the same office waiting for that phone call. Andreas Tautsiardis, the man who made the phone call, because he's in Greece, he was not able to be really investigated by American authorities, but he was intercepted about a year ago at Newark Airport, and they confiscated his phone. So there's a lot of unknowns that we expect to find out in the next 6 weeks here. And that's the beginning layer, right? That you then have her later on in the day with Fotis and the Raptor throwing away evidence in Hartford. Like, she's in the car, she tells police she thinks it's coffee. If you think it's fucking coffee, why are you driving 20 minutes away to toss it out in different trash receptacles? That the math ain't mathing. So,
right, yeah, like nothing's more like, so if we can get the evidence that they set up that phone call to happen at the time that Fotis knew that he was going to be going, then that's huge. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because then that's just showing the planning process. So one of my mods, Dizzy, so she is Dizzy. Like, that's what I was saying. Conspiracy to commit murder is basically murder. Like, she is penalized for the exact same as if she killed her herself is. So,
and premeditated, right? Because if you're doing those things on the day of, you know about it. You know it's going down. Why else are you going out and making extra effort to make a alibi? It doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah, well, that's one of the elements of conspiracy is planning. So yeah, it's definitely premeditated. So, like, and we'll talk about, like, this actually is a very interesting argument. I see a lot of people kind of poo-pooing it in the chat, and essentially what Dude's saying here is that because there is no what they call probative value, okay, meaning that because the luminol or whatever spray that they're using, it reacts to many different substances, that, you know, that the state just putting up pictures, say for instance, of the inside of a vehicle that has, the luminol spray, and then they got the light on, and it shows all different types of substances like illuminated, it will give the jury the impression theoretically that that's all blood, right? So apparently the case law in Connecticut says no, that's way more prejudicial than it is probative, because it does lead the jury to potentially the wrong idea, so that's what they're trying to argue about. So what the judge is trying to figure out from the state, and that's what the law is. Like, the judge is on board because that's what the law in Connecticut is, as far as luminol, just it reacts to lots of different substances. So you can't put up a bunch of pictures where they've been able to determine that one of the spots was blood, but the other 25 weren't, because it confuses the jury or it could lead them to the wrong impression. So that's what they're arguing now. So the judge is trying to figure out, when they're putting this next witness on, this is all anticipatory. The judge wants to know, this is basically what you call an offer of proof. What are you going to have this cop testify to? It's actually like evidentiary stuff. If you're a law nerd, is fascinating. And this is where all the battles are. I keep trying to tell people, it's like these motions are filed all the time. Pre-trial motions in limine, you know, all the motions that lead up to trial are to determine what's going to be introduced, what's going to be kept out in terms of evidence for what the jury is going to see. So this is exactly what's going on here. So it's actually an interesting argument. If you're not a law nerd, it's boring as shit.
And in the recess until 12:15.
All rise. This honor was to be recorded now stand in recess until 12:15.
Recess until about 12:40. You want to, let's go. I haven't eaten breakfast. I came right on. You want to rejoin about an hour? I'll set up a new link. This is really cool having people from both sides join in. We're seeing some new faces. The chat links up, so you can join either one. We don't care. We just want to hang out with y'all. So I love it.
Same.
We'll reconvene with some good questions. We're going to go eat. We're going to refuel. And when we get back, because we've refueled, we're probably going to do a lot more of a Russian accent, right, Bub? We will do commentary in Russian. We may use
Russian accent.
I may use my Indian voice. Thank you for calling to the Packer. May I route your call? We'll be doing voices, guys.
Indian voice. I do a very good Indian voice as well.
Oh my God! Have you lost your senses, Bob? Have you lost your goddamn senses? All right, we'll see you guys soon. We love you. Thanks for joining. We'll see you guys in about an hour. A new stream link will go out.